Hey, everybody. Welcome to Vikings Report Rewind with your usual partner in crime, Drew, that way. As you could tell, below us, only in figuratively, of course, not Chris. Our
I have slightly more hair than Chris does.
um, he is Ryan Johnson, or affectionately known as Ryno from Vikings Uncensored. He's so graciously agreed to join us tonight in place of Chris, who has like a real job on Happy Legal Tampering Day. Everybody,
Yeah.
Ryno, how you doing tonight?
Doing well, doing well. It's been a very interesting day to say the least in Vikings Nation. So, been fun. I've made the comment earlier. I've enjoyed today more than I've enjoyed the start of free agency in years. So it's the I made the serious mistake of not taking the day off from work because I spent half my day refreshing Twitter every 30 seconds from like 11 o'clock on to about 3.
I got a question for Ryno. Ryno,
Yeah.
now that Kirk Cousins is moving on, what the hell are you and Lance going to talk about on your Kirk Cousins saga soap opera segment? You've had that going for 4 years now, I think. What the hell are you going to do now?
It's been going for a while. I don't know. We're going to have to come up with something else. I mean, we got 6 weeks to talk about the draft, I suppose, and then we'll have to, we'll come up with something. We always have something good to talk about. So
We finally have an answer, Ted.
We do. Suffice it to say, this is the most consequential day in Minnesota Vikings history since the Minnesota Vikings signed Kirk Cousins back in 2018.
This is
I would
the
say
day.
so.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's a lot of angst and what are the Vikings going to do at quarterback? You guys have seen the movie Forrest Gump, right?
Yeah.
So you remember when Forrest has the leg braces on when he's a kid and he's running and he can't run very fast, and all of a sudden the leg braces start coming off a little bit, and all of a sudden he takes off running. I kind of feel that's where the franchise is now. Kirk Cousins was not a bad quarterback, but let me throw this number out at you guys. In the 6 years prior to Kirk Cousins getting signed by the Vikings, from 2012 to 2017, the Minnesota Vikings went 54, 41, and 1, went to the playoffs 3 times, won 1 playoff win. That was the 2017 NFC Championship. In the 6 years since Kirk Cousins was signed, they went 53, 45, and 1, with 2 playoff appearances and 1 playoff win. Look, for all the reasons, and there's a bunch of them, but Kirk Cousins did not move the needle. I mean, if we remember, Kirk Cousins was brought in to take the Vikings to the next level, and he did not do that. For whatever reason, that didn't happen. So he goes to Atlanta on a 4-year, $180 million deal with $100 million guaranteed. Bye, Felicia. That's all I got to say about Kirk at this point, Drew.
Yeah, it's if he fulfills this contract, he will end up $3 million behind Tom Brady for the most money ever earned. If he gets that, he's made $231 million in this league. He's going to make $331 million because $100 million is guaranteed, and he has a chance to make up over $400 million by the time it's all said and done. If he, goes the full distance of the contract, which I don't think he will. 5 playoff games with Washington and the Vikings, and he's won 1. 1 playoff game his whole career, and he's going to make over close to $500 million. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. It just got to the point where I kind of agree with you. I think Cousins got better as the years went on here.
I would agree.
Definitely a better quarterback now than he was in 2018 when he arrived. But it's the Vikings have always had this problem of holding on to guys too long. Let's settle for this guy because it's all we have. They have done that for years. It's better than what we have. And that's how I feel like with Kirk Cousins the last couple of seasons. Well, we can't go out and he's the best thing we can do, so we got to sign him and try it with him. But it's not going to work with him. I mean, I think all of us can fairly say that the last couple of years we don't think Kirk Cousins, and you really sold with all your heart and soul that he was going to take us to the Super Bowl.
Ryno, why don't you go ahead and answer that question?
Well, first off, it's funny that you brought up the Forrest Gump analogy, because with Forrest Gump running with those braces on was a very strong reminder of every scramble Kirk Cousins did in a Vikings uniform. So.
Remember the baby horse? Remember
Yeah.
Ryno,
The baby horse, yeah.
A baby horse.
But yeah, I mean, it's time to try something different. Like you said, Ted, he was brought in here to be that final piece to the puzzle, and we are no better off sitting here in 2024 than we were sitting at this point in 2018. And after, close to $200 million, you'd think you get a little better return on investment than that. But you got to give the guy credit. I mean, him and his team are some of the most shrewd negotiators in NFL history, getting the size contract he got from Atlanta.
If you can get it, get it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't blame him for that. But, if you look at this through Atlanta's eyes, what a hit and miss. If you follow Kirk Cousins' career, Ted, you have to have a lot of good receivers around you. You have to have good offensive line. You have to have a good defense. You have to have a good system. You have to have a good coach. You have to have you need everything to go well with Kirk Cousins to have any success. And I hear about he didn't have the O-line. He didn't have this it's always something with that guy.
It was.
You need a quarterback that can overcome all that, for one thing. Mm-hmm. And look at Atlanta. Look at their receivers.
It's not as good a situation.
It's not. So Atlanta didn't read the chapter on Kirk Cousins needs all this good shit around him to succeed. They didn't read that. Look at their defense.
I think their fan base read it, because I saw a lot of Falcons Twitter today that were not really happy with the signing. But
what do you think, Ted?
I think I don't know that there has been a more divisive player in recent Minnesota Vikings history than Kirk Cousins. I was not a fan when the Vikings first signed him. I thought he was kind of an average guy. I didn't think he was worth the money at the time when they signed him. I came around on Kirk in 2020 and 2021 when the Vikings defense really kind of took a nosedive. 2018 and 2019, when the defense was still pretty good, I thought he underperformed. When the defense wasn't very good, I thought he really started to carry the team in many ways. Drew, you and I talked about this a lot. In 2022, Kevin O'Connell's first year, I thought, was Kirk's best year as a pro. Without him, there's no way the Vikings win 13 games. There's absolutely no way the Vikings win 13 games.
Yeah.
But after last year, after he ruptured his Achilles, I thought, no, look, the guy's going to be 36, and you and Chris and I have talked about this. A guy that's going to be 36 coming off an Achilles heel injury does not need to get a 3-year deal with a whole bunch of guaranteed money. The Vikings, I'm glad they offered him an opportunity to come back for like one more year, but they held firm and said, this is it. We're not going any more than this. And if you don't like it, then go find a better deal. And he did. And I think, and it's addition by subtraction, I think in the long run, possibly if the Vikings can find a replacement. And look, there is no question that this year in 2024, the Vikings quarterback position is going to be a downgrade statistically. I don't think anybody can logically argue the Vikings quarterback position is going to be better. You're not going to replace the production Kirk Cousins would give you. I mean, Baker Mayfield wasn't going to do it. Gardner Minshew wasn't going to do it. Sam Darnold's not going to do it. Anybody they draft isn't going to do it. That's not going to happen. But you now have the opportunity to get better as a football team. Look what happened when the Vikings drafted Teddy Bridgewater in 2014. In 2015, they got a monster defense, and look what they did in free agency today. We'll get to that in a minute. And they were on the verge of getting a Super Bowl caliber defense and football team before Teddy Bridgewater shattered his knee. And then they still had a very good defense and got to the NFC Championship with Case friggin' Keenum in 2017. So I'm glad Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah is looking to the future of this franchise and is not sticking in a bad marriage for the sake of the kids, which it kind of felt like they were
Right.
doing with Kirk
Mhm.
Cousins for the last 3 or 4 years.
It's a great analogy right there, Ted. Ted. That's great. I think that's correct.
Ryno, did you get your cup from Nate the Hoof Guy's channel?
No, it's actually Viking culture. If you here, hold on.
I got one of those. You know what, Ted? You say I think Ford's spot on with the addition by subtraction. You won't get the stats like you just talked about, but you know what you will get? Some other things that Kirk Cousins can't do that we've all been waiting on. You get a chance to have a quarterback that can make plays out of the pocket. You have a chance to do. I'm excited just because it's new. It's like getting a new car when you're 18 or getting a new
Girlfriend?
companion. You're excited that first date, aren't you? You're excited to go out
Yeah.
that.
No,
So,
I get it. I get it.
I'm excited about the Vikings. I'm excited the quarterback. I like Kirk Cousins. I'm not going to rip on him, but you know what, Ryno? It's something to get excited about. We've been talking about getting a different quarterback in here for a couple of years between your show and our show and plenty of shows.
Yeah, I mean, it's, as I know Chris has brought this up on your show before and everything else, but the old saying rings true. The definition of insanity is trying the same stuff over and over again and expecting different results out of it. We tried it with Kirk for 6 years, and whether you fall into the trap of everything, tailor-made excuses for why Kirk didn't deliver, Kirk was not the only problem. He also wasn't the solution, apparently, which we found out. But I'm excited for the new beginning. Like Ted said earlier, we had just as good of a winning percentage in those 6 years prior to Kirk showing up with the likes of Christian Ponder and Teddy Bridgewater and Sam Bradford and Case Keenum as we did for a guy we paid $200 million for.
Yeah.
But I've got to give, and I know I've seen it all over the place, people ripping on Kwesi for this. I am giving 1,000% kudos to Kwesi because he had a plan in mind and he stuck to it. He didn't pull a Spielman and, oh crap, Kirk might actually walk. Here you go. Here's the Brinks truck. Here's the keys. The code for the lock at Fort Knox is 1, 2, 3, 4, and and that's
wait. That's the code for Fort Knox.
What was it again?
That's simple.
And the password is password. But and that's and I knock on analytics too. I mean, if you use it too much, but I think Kwesi being an analytics guy, he can take some of that emotion and some of that stuff out of it and look at it from a black and white perspective on some of this stuff, which, I think helped him in this case to not freak out and panic move and throw the farm at somebody who we don't know if Kirk's going to be any good coming off this Achilles. I think he will be, at least for another year or two, but we don't know. And the Vikings were the only ones up until today that had access to the medical records too. So,
well, he's got the unicorn in Atlanta, Kyle Pitts.
Yeah. Okay. Now, what am I talking about then? He's fine. Yeah.
One question I want to get back to, and it's our online affiliate, purplepainforums.com. I should have mentioned them earlier. Purple Pain Forums, your home for everything Minnesota Vikings, the offseason. They asked, should we get an underwhelming bridge quarterback or just roll with the rookie? I mean, it seems obvious now that the Vikings are going to do their utmost to get a quarterback in the first round. That just seems a given now that Kirk is gone. Yeah, I don't know. I honestly, at this point, I'm good. I think they'll probably try and sign somebody. Sam Darnold is the name that's thrown out a lot now. Whoever it's going to be, I don't know. I personally think they're going to roll with Nick Mullins, but that's just my own personal opinion. And draft a guy and go with Mullins to start the year. But I don't know. What are you guys thinking on that one, Drew? Who do you think they're going to go with? Do you think they're going to sign somebody in free agency, or what do you think their plan is?
Every time I look up those free agent quarterbacks, guys, for the 2024 season, here's how I'm looking at them. I don't get excited about any of them, Ryno, Ted. I don't. I mean, I'm trying to find a guy on there that could be a bridge guy. I liked Mayfield, but I mean, Cousins is clearly the best guy on there, but we moved on from him. They almost have to take a free agent if they don't think the rookie guy is going to be ready to play. And I don't know if any of these rookie guys are ready to start week 1. I don't think so, unless the Vikings see it differently and they're not worried about it, and they're just going to have Mullins. You can't tell the fans we're going to have Mullins and expect them week 1 to say we're a Super Bowl team, can you? They can't. People aren't going to get excited about. I'd rather have a rookie in there than Mullins. At least I don't know. It's a good question, Ted.
Purple Pain agreed. She says, "Don't waste our time with an underwhelming bridge. Just roll with the rookie and big pick Nick."
Whatever the plan is, they're moving on to something different, and I'm excited about that. So I don't know.
I would be okay with Mullins if he could just cut down on his interceptions, man. I mean, the guy can sling the rock all over the yard, and he has absolutely no fear, absolutely none whatsoever.
That last game against Detroit, he started airing it out in the second half. He had a couple bomb touchdowns. I'm going, where the hell's that been all? Just let it go.
He threw for 800 yards against the Lions.
Yeah.
Dude.
Literally 800 yards in 2 games against Detroit.
Yeah, he did.
Well, he knows the system, and I guess that would, if you're going to have a rookie learn, you got to have somebody in there. Ryno, do you like any of the free agents? I
was kind of on the with Ted and the Minshew mania if we could have got him for a year or 2, but those that are out there, Sam Darnold really doesn't do much for me. Jacoby Brissett, again, same boat. It's going to depend, I think, on who they get as a rookie. You know, if they think the kid is going to be ready to go right off the bat. But the problem is we don't draft for another 6 weeks yet.
Yeah.
And by that time, any free agent quarterback that's worth a plug nickel is going to be gone, which most of them aren't worth a plug nickel already. But, you know, I would say that they're probably going to sign somebody just as kind of an insurance policy in case, you know, the worst case scenario happens and somehow or another we get jumped for it. All 4 of the top 4 quarterbacks. They got to have. I don't think they would want to roll into the season with just Nick Mullins and Jaron Hall as our quarterbacks. But
right.
I'm of the oak though. I would just roll with the rookie. You know, unless they absolutely think he's not ready and they're afraid it's going to stunt his development if they put him in there. But if you're drafting a rookie in the top 5, you know, if you don't think he's ready, why is he getting drafted in the top 5 too? I guess.
Maybe we can go get one of your old party buddies that you used to party with. You know, Carson Wentz, Easton Stick. Those are your old buddies from school. You used to party with those guys. Maybe they'll come over and play. From NDSU.
Somebody mentioned Trey Lance.
The Bison.
I'm done with the Trey Lance thing. He's got passed around more than at a bong at Burning Man festival, like we talked about. Allegedly. But
hypothetically.
Yeah. I mean, Carson Wentz could be an option. I don't know how great of an option. It's not a great option, but it's a potential option.
See, honestly, I'd rather go with Mullins and put the rookie in.
I think I would too. Yeah.
To hold the clipboard and have him be your number 2 guy. And if Mullins were to get hurt, throw the rookie in there. But that's just.
I think even if you start a bridge quarterback, you know, unless the Vikings catch fire and win like 4 of their first 6 or something like that with a Mullins or whoever it is, I would think by mid-season you probably would see the rook at least getting some playing time anyway, if not taking over for the starter.
Now, on the offensive side of the ball, there were a couple other minor signings, but I also consider them very good signings. A couple depth guys that Drew and I, if you haven't seen it yet, we did an abbreviated show, offensive tackle positional analysis. Say that 3 times fast. Aired late last night, and we've got our interior offensive line coming later this coming weekend. But Blake Brandel and David Questenberry, who both played very well in spots last year, were both re-signed by the Vikings. Guys, I think those are both great depth signings for the Vikes.
Absolutely agree.
I agree too. Yeah. Lance and I talked about Questenberry on the show on Saturday night, you know, that we'd like to get him back. And, you know, I think it was 1 year, $2 million or something like that they paid for him. So
the Ted, the center from Denver, is a free agent. Cushenberry.
No, who did he sign with? Ryno, I saw you sign with somebody.
Yeah, he went to Tennessee.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did. So we won't have the Quisenberry thing. Okay.
No. Here's a good question by AJ Freebird TV. Will Dalton Reisner come back? Think we'll get Reisner back?
Have to get Reisner. Number one, besides JJ, is getting Reisner in there at left guard. You got to bring him back. You got to.
I think so. I think that, they're going to let him go out and kind of test the market and see what his value is. But, like the Spotrac numbers and stuff I saw ahead of time before free agency even started was, that $8 million a year range probably for him. I'll pay Reisner $8 million a year any day of the week. He brought in stability in the passing game last year, something we really didn't have before. And Ingram is developing on the other side into at least a serviceable guard right now. So it's just, you get Reisner back, then your weak link just narrows it down to Bradbury. But
GMAC says, I wish we had signed Cushenberry. I do too, GMAC.
Reggie, to hell with Aaron Jones.
Skull Trollneck says Cushenberry is now legal in Minnesota. It's been legal in the People's Republic of Illinois for quite a while. No, this is not a spotted cow, Nick Howard. This is New Glarus, but it's two women. If I had $1 million, you know what I'd do? Two women at the same time. Anyway.
There we go. Now we're running. No, Reggie, I don't want Aaron Jones because he's beat our team too much. I don't want to see that guy around.
But one of the offshoots of Kirk Cousins not re-signing with the Minnesota Vikings were the defensive signings the Vikings had today. The first one was defensive end Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans. The second one was Dolphins linebacker Andrew Rip Van Ginkel. And then the third one was former Minnesota Gophers linebacker Blake Cashman. Now, all combined, these guys signed for guaranteed money. Let's see. Greenard, I should have probably added this up before, but Greenard's guaranteed money was $42 million. Let's see. Van Ginkel was $14 million, so that we're up to $56 million. And then Cashman was 25, so 56, 66, 70. So less than 3 solid defensive players signed for less guaranteed money than Kirk Cousins will get in his first 2 years as quarterback of the Atlanta Falcons. And all 3 of those dudes are really good players. And if you look on Twitter, if you have an account, go to the Purple Persuasion. He did a comparison on PFF grades between Grenard and Danielle Hunter, and they are very close in ability, and he's essentially Danielle Hunter's replacement. He's 2 years younger, and he's going to be a cheaper option than Danielle Hunter, who we all kind of anticipate is now gone based on this signing. So,
well, Grenard had 12.5 sacks last year too, so he's no scrub by any means.
Yeah.
Great. 4 years in the NFL, he is younger than Hunter. Last season was his most productive season since he's been in the NFL. He had 52 tackles, 36 solo. He had 15 tackles for loss last year, which was more than he had in 2022 and 2021 combined, Ted. And he also had 22 quarterback hits, which is more than he's ever had on 3 years at Houston. So last year he jumped up. I think it probably had to do with D'Amico Ryans being the head coach. He's a defensive guy. Probably fired him up and taught him some things. But like Ryno said, he's 12.5 sacks is nothing to sneeze at. I think that's a good signing. And now that he's left Houston, let's be honest, guys, the grass is always greener on the other side.
Literally.
And I'll tell you what, you don't want to sleep on this Van Ginkel signing.
Not world.
See what I did there?
You don't want to sleep on
I see
that.
what you did there.
I do like that. If you remember right, I don't know, Ryno might remember this. Back in 2019, my drill big board, I had both of those guys on the same year, Blake Cashman and Van Ginkel. I love Van Ginkel because, they got these two guys, and I'll let you guys talk about them. These two guys are smart linebackers who play every play. They don't take any plays off. They're very intense players, very smart football players, I remember this from doing the draft write-up on both of them. They're character guys, great teammates. And Van Ginkel is a playmaker. He's always around the football. And if you're always around the football, that means you're not getting killed on your first block. You're getting off your block and making a play. Because some people say, how come some players are always around the football, like Matt Blair, and then some players aren't? Well, because some linebackers, when they can get away from the first block, they don't give up. They work. He's a hard-working. They're both really hard-working guys. Cashman, go look at his tape from the University of Minnesota. He's a machine. And go look at Van Ginkel running that fumble recovery back against Ohio State in that bowl game. Go back and look at that. That's a moment of glory.
I don't know what you're talking about there.
Oh, Ohio State might have won 66-7, but the 7 came from Van Ginkel running that. He's just a big energy guy. I like the character. I like the signings because they're not divas. They're hardworking players. That's how you build a defense. Flores knows Van Ginkel is good. Flores knows it. He knows it.
And the one thing, Ryan, I've noticed is that Troublemaker 2-3 is on here. He says Hunter gave up the most uninspiring 16.5 sacks in history. And I gotta say, Ohio State robbed Miami. All right, look, Tommy.
That's a prize. That's a prize right there.
All right, fine. Give him a prize. Like, folks, all you got to do is make a comment. You're eligible for a prize. Tommy wins a prize. All right, fine.
Tommy, we love you.
Tommy, get a hold of Toots at Vikings Report, Drew@gmail.com. We'll mail a prize out to you. But Ryan, the thing about Flores is, and we saw this with Josh Metellus. Somebody mentioned kind of a joke that Metellus now doesn't have to play 10 positions with these signings today. That he can take his players. He knows what his players can do, and he can mix and match. I mean, we talked about this throughout the course of last year, that when a quarterback came to the line throughout the course of the game, he probably saw 15 or 20 different combinations of who the front 7 guys were. You never saw the same front 7 twice in a row, probably. And with the addition of these 3 guys, that for money that you didn't have to spend on Kirk Cousins, now Flores can go back into his mad scientist laboratory and come up with even more crazy schemes. And when you think about what he did with not a whole lot of talent last year, now you're actually putting legitimate defensive talent in his hands, what he's going to be able to do with this defense.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it was the thing that stuck out when Flores did his introductory press conference. They asked him, do you run a 4-3 or do you run a 3-4? He said, who are we playing this week? It's that he's got, it's not that whole thing. You've got the true illusion of complexity like KOC likes to allude to. But with these guys, you've got them. You can run them up into a 5-2. You can drop them to a 3-4. You can do all sorts of different stuff. Line them up, different positions, pump them inside, run that NASCAR package type thing like Zimmer used to run once in a while. When you've got these guys with the high motor, and guys that have position flexibility, it just makes us so much better now. Again, the biggest thing on my radar yet for the defense is we got to get some interior pressure. Continue, at least so continuous pressure, not just once in a while pop up. Of course, we looked at everybody wanted Christian Wilkins, and he almost stole the Brinks trucks from Kirk Cousins with that contract he got. But
who did he sign with?
Raiders.
Oh, I did not know that.
$27.5 million a year.
So in a nutshell, Ryno, what you're saying is you're a little bit more impressed with Brian Flores than Ed Donatel?
Just slightly.
Don't run the same base defense out there against the same different teams every week, the same defense?
And have Troy Aikman calling you out on the TV screen for running a 3-high shell for the entire Monday Night Football game against the Eagles 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Reggie Adams just came in and said it sounds like Hunter to Chicago. Wow. Okay.
Damn it.
Here's the thing with Hunter, and I agree with.
I don't want to see him go to a divisional team.
Okay, but here's the thing. The dude's 30. Same with Kirk. You get to a certain age, And you look at let's look at the contracts. I was going to mention this earlier. I think this is a great segue. I'd be interested to see what the numbers are for Hunter's deal, if that's true. So Grenard was 4 years, $76 million. Van Ginkel was 2 years for $20 million with $14 million guaranteed, and Cashman was 3 years for $25 million. None of these are backbreaking deals, right. and I'm sure there's offset language that will allow the Vikings to get out of these contracts with minimal dead money after like a year or two if they need to, if these deals don't work out. So you're not going to have a situation where you have older guys on bad contracts that we saw time and time and time again with Rick Spielman. And if nothing else, for all the folks that are not happy with what Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah has done, he has eliminated this terrible salary cap problem that Rick Spielman had because he couldn't draft from 2016 on. So he had to keep re-signing these guys because he couldn't draft the guy to replace a Kyle Rudolph. He couldn't draft the guy to replace an Everson Griffin. We could argue bad luck with Teddy Bridgewater, so he had to go sign Kirk Cousins, stuff like that. So anyways, I mean, I just like what the new GM is doing and not getting stuck on these bad deals long-term is just very refreshing to me.
I 1,000% agree, Ted. The guys that he's signing, they're relatively young. Both these guys today were from the 2019 draft, and then Greenard was just a couple years ago. But they're young and they're high character players who are play with a lot of intensity.
Yeah, and
I love their attitude. The attitude of the player means almost as much as his ability. It does. How much of a team can they build around? These are team guys that they got today, and I'm very happy with the signing, and I'm very happy with how he's attacking, rebuilding this team. Everything you just said is what we're trying to eliminate with the contract.
And like my boy Tommy said, he's not, about Hunter, he's not going to honor the contract anyways. One thing about Hunter, I was getting sick of for like the last 2, 3, 4 years, however long it was.
Oh yeah,
being bitching about his contract and not wanting to report and holding out, whatever. That is not going to be a thing now. I mean, you got guys that are younger, they're hungry, they want to come in and prove themselves, and they've got someone they want to play for now in Brian Flores. I'm telling you, man, this defense was good last year. I think it's going to be fierce.
One last thing about Ginkel, and I'll get Ryno's take on it. It was Van Ginkel's one of those guys who you watch. We watch a lot of football. We don't just watch the Vikings. Every time I watch the Dolphin games, it's that Van Ginkel guy again. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, he's always making plays. He's always around the ball. He's always getting his name called for doing something out in the field. And I don't know for a fact. I don't read any Miami Dolphin podcasts or posts or anything. But I'd probably be pissed if I was a Dolphin fan losing that guy.
They are. It's the same thing with Grenard too. I mean, the guy is a hell of a run defender too. He's not just a pass rusher. And back to Ted's thing about the getting rid of the players. My damn it, when they said Hunter to Chicago wasn't the fact that we're losing Hunter. I was of the same boat. That at 30 years old, I'm not giving him 25, 27 million, whatever it was he's going to end up getting. It was pairing him with Montez Sweat over in Chicago for a year or two again. We got to play him twice a year. It's going to suck. But, I had fully, made peace with the thing of moving on from Hunter, moving on from Kirk, everything like that. But yeah, the Van Ginkel thing. Yeah, I don't watch a lot of Dolphins games, but the ones I have watched, like you said, Drew, the guy pops up on tape all over the place. He's one of those guys with always around the ball. He's got that nose. He's always in there. And the biggest thing with these, we got 2 quality pass rushers here for probably less money than what Danielle Hunter himself is getting. We saw it last year. Hunter was going lights out. DJ Wanham was going lights out on the other side. I mean, Wanham had 8 sacks. Wanham got hurt. Danielle Hunter did not have a sack for 3 weeks after Wanham got hurt. So and that's when the secondary got exposed too, because we lost all the pass rush we had up front. You got multiple guys that can rush from multiple locations you take the pressure off those guys in the back because they're not having to cover somebody for 5, 6, 7 seconds. Because if there's the quarterback has the ball for 5 or 6 seconds, you're going to have somebody in his face here knocking him on the ground when you have pass rush coming from more than one spot.
One guy that I was really kind of hoping the Vikings would be seriously in on was defensive tackle Christian Wilkins from the Miami Dolphins. Sadly, the Vikings didn't get him. He went to the Las Vegas Raiders, and he signed a massive contract. It was like $84 million guaranteed. It was over $100 million total, I believe, right in the neighborhood of Aaron Donald money. I mean, Aaron Donald is making $31 million average annual value. You look at Wilkins' contract; it's $27 million annual average. I'm fine with the Vikings not going that far for Wilkins, but it still leaves a problem at defensive tackle, nose tackle, whatever position you think the Vikings need. What do you think the Vikings will do, Drew? Do you think they're still going to address this in free agency? Or are they going to wait till maybe the draft? What are your thoughts on that now that Wilkins is going to be paired up with Max Crosby in Sin City?
I think it might be both free agency and the draft.
Okay.
I would like to take a guy defensive tackles. Unless you're going to get the top 2 or 3 guys, you're going to get a guy that sits and has to learn and it has to adjust. Usually guards and defensive tackles aren't, going to play in there right away unless you're, Wilkins. Maybe both. I certainly want to draft a guy that's in the higher echelon of defensive tackles, which we'll have in 2 weeks on Vikings Report. We're going to start our defense with defensive tackles. But don't the Raiders do this all the time? Throw out these huge contracts for these guys, then they come over, and in 3 years you've never heard of him, and he runs somebody over in his car, and he's not in the team anymore. The Raiders do this all the time. They have for years, it seems like. They always get in cap trouble because they do these giant, I don't know. It just seems like they're always doing it. I don't know. I think they'll address maybe both free agency and the draft.
Ryno, what do you think they're going to do?
I would kind of have to agree with Drew on it here. There's still some guys out there. I know they're up older. I know Leonard Williams is a name that I've seen thrown about quite a bit today. DJ Reed is another one. They're both up in that 30-year-old range, so it would be a 1 to 2 year contract most likely if you're going to do it. But, going into the draft, I'm a big Sweat fan from Texas there. I'd love to get that kid on this team. We're obviously going quarterback early, so it takes, the Newton kid from Illinois out of the picture, maybe Murphy out of the picture, but there's going to be, with all these quarterbacks, and then you've got that crop of the top 3, 4 wide receivers up in that are going to go early. It's going to push a lot of these defenders back. And
right,
if you don't have to give up your 2nd round pick to move up for at least this year's 2nd round to move up for a quarterback, you potentially could jump back into the back end of the 1st round and get one of these guys that are falling.
Yeah, that's very true. Very true. The one thing besides defensive tackle, somebody mentioned earlier cornerback. Do you think they're gonna go after a corner? Are you kind of happy with Mekhi Blackman and I got
Caleb Evans?
Thank you. Not a Caleb Evans. Byron Murphy Jr. And the crew they had at the end of last season, or is it something, a position they need to address before they get to the draft?
I would like to see, there's still some good cornerbacks out there. I think you can probably wait until this first wave is over and get somebody a little bit cheaper than, you typically on the first 2 days of free agency, everybody's a bit inflated in the price. But getting a shutdown guy, of course, everybody wants a shutdown guy, but you don't need that. You need a good, solid cornerback with experience that can help these young guys, your Blackmans, your Booths, your Evans, those guys learn. You've got Murphy on there, but, having a second guy with some experience back there, I think would pay dividends. It's just who that is at this point in time, I don't know. I don't want to draft a cornerback. I think we have enough young people at corner, unless like a Kool-Aid McKinstry falls to you in the second round or something like that, just throwing names out there. But, I think that's probably a spot that if they deem that they need a little help in there, that, there's been talk that the Vikings inquired with Kansas City about trading for L'Jarius Sneed.
I saw that, yeah.
Does that mean they're serious about it, or they just pick up the phone, hey, what do you want for him, kind of thing? But remains to be seen, I guess.
Yeah. One thing I've seen, and they're from a couple of accounts on Twitter. They're not official reporters, but these are a couple of accounts that have been pretty plugged into the team. And they've kind of hinted that Justin Jefferson may not be as untradeable as we seem to think. Drew, I remember you and I and Chris have talked that, if the Vikings moved on from Kirk, it would be the Vikings would be a perfect spot for a young quarterback with Justin Jefferson, TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, a young up and coming defense. I mean, it would be a perfect spot for a first round quarterback to develop and grow here. But I'm not saying it's going to happen. But do you see a scenario where the Vikings, if Justin Jefferson says, look, you got rid of Kirk, I want out, trade me?
You're right. It's a great place for a young quarterback to come in because he's have all that around him. Then you trade the best guy that you got, and that wouldn't help the young quarterback.
It would not.
It's you got to sell JJ on. We're getting a new guy, and it's going to be Mahomes. It's time for us to get our Mahomes. It is. The Chiefs go to the NFC Championship every freaking year. Why do you think they do? Mahomes. And Andy Reid, all that, you can give me all those other things. It's Mahomes. That's why they go so far in the playoffs every year. We need a chance to get our Mahomes, and JJ's got to understand there's life beyond Kirk. I don't want to trade him. I'm telling you, the generational players thrown around too much. This is I've watched football a lot of years. And I remember when Lynn Swann hit the scene. Those guys, Jerry Rice, Chris Carter, when those guys, I think it would be a mistake to trade JJ. You got to keep the franchise guy. He's so damn good. That guy him alone can help you start a rookie quarterback. It would be very helpful with him in there. So I don't want to trade him. What about you, Ryno?
No, we made the mistake one time of trading the greatest wide receiver of his generation, and we ended up with Troy Williamson and short on wide receivers for the next 5-6 years. Justin Jefferson, like you said, generational talent gets thrown around a lot. By the end of this Justin Jefferson's career, he very likely may be the best wide receiver to ever play the game.
Yes.
And, the thing that gets me all this time, people have been throwing this around ever since the season is over, about, Justin Jefferson's going to demand a trade if we get rid of Kirk Cousins and this and everything else. That has never made any sense to me because Justin Jefferson is going to be so pissed that he doesn't get to play with Kirk Cousins that he's going to demand to be traded to another team and not play with Kirk Cousins there either. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't see it, but I'm not saying it's going to happen, but these two guys on these two accounts I follow.
No,
I saw the same ones that you talked about, and never say never, obviously, in life, in football, in anything. But I would say the odds are very, very low unless the Vikings get completely blown out of the water with an offer.
People always think, look at what you can get a big haul for JJ, Ted. Look at what we can get back. You're not getting anything back until you hit on the draft picks.
That's true. That's very true. You're right. Having draft picks doesn't mean anything unless you get good players with those draft picks. You're absolutely right.
What if you got 3 or 4 guys that sucked? Then
Philadelphia had draft picks too, and they took Jalen Reagor over Justin Jefferson.
Their comment here from Troublemaker 23 says we traded Moss, and with those picks, we drafted Troy Williamson, and who was the linebacker we got from the Raiders?
Wasn't it Napoleon something?
Napoleon Harris. Yeah, Napoleon Harris. Yeah. So, yeah.
There you go.
who in that following year was the first year I covered camp, and I called him Dontarius Thomas, and he gave me like the death stare.
You know what? I did a draft write-up on Dontarius Thomas at Auburn.
Yeah.
That guy was one of the best linebackers I've ever. Him in that, the biggest draft disappointment was that Curry guy from Georgia Tech that's a Seahawks took, Aaron Curry. Best linebacking tape I've ever seen in my life. Comes to the NFL and does nothing. You never know.
Okay. Okay. Just speculation here. What if we get Arizona pick? I'm assuming this is a Justin Jefferson trade. I'm assuming. I'm only speculating. What if we get Arizona's pick? So that'd be 4 overall.
Great comment, by the way.
And grab Marvin Harrison Jr. I would assume if the Vikings traded Justin Jefferson and got 4, they would get a quarterback. But okay, let's just play this out. And they grab Marvin Harrison Jr. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. We'll give Ted a moment here.
I would have to log off on draft night, and I would need a moment to myself. I would just have to need a moment.
The thing is, unless you've already traded up to 3 with New England or something to get your quarterback, if you're sitting there at 4, you're taking your quarterback there, and then you take pick 11 and go get a Malik Neighbors or Roma Dunze or somebody like that to backfill. I mean, we'd all love to have Marvin Harrison Jr. There's no question about that. But
any football team that's trading up into the top 10 in the history of football or in the top 5 is getting a quarterback.
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to trade up that high to get. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. is a great college player, but he hasn't done what Jefferson's done in the pros yet. He hasn't, so we don't know.
That's true.
But he is going to be a great receiver, I think. It's a good question.
So
good to throw around little scenarios like that. We didn't talk about Blake Cashman too much.
No, what do you like about Blake Cashman's game, Drew? I
liked Blake Cashman back when I did my draft stuff on him. And Ryno, you remember, you and I both were wanting to draft this guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I had him as a 2nd to 3rd rounder, Ted. He went in the 5th round. He went to the Jets. And the Vikings could have had him in the earlier round, Ted. But, we had to take that Drew Samia, that guard, legendary Drew Samia. We had to get him on the team. So we took him in the 4th. Yeah, remember the great career he had with the Vikings?
Yes, he did.
If Cashman, let me tell you right now, Cashman had a lot of problems on the Jets with injuries. He was injury prone, always injured. If you can keep that guy in the field, he is going to be an exceptional sign. He'll be a steal for the Vikings. I mean, listen to these numbers last year. Even with his Golden Gopher days, everybody was high on that guy coming out into the draft, but I don't know how he slipped to the 5th round. Maybe it was the injuries, but the first 2 seasons. What am I looking at here?
I don't know.
The first 2 seasons with the Texans, he didn't really do anything. And then last year he had 106 tackles. He only had 8 missed tackles on the season. Blake Cashman for the Texans last year. Basically, he's been hurt and not playing the first 4 years in the NFL with the Jets, and then he got traded to the Texans. Last year, look at his numbers from last year. That's the Blake Cashman. If he stays healthy, that's what you get, those numbers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a machine at tackling. I watched him a lot at college with the Gophers. I wanted the Vikings to draft him. The 2 guys I wanted the Vikings to draft were Cashman and Van Ginkel. And now they're on the team. So I'm good with it. Cashman is a very capable linebacker. You just got to keep him healthy. Groin, hamstring, he suffered through that with the Jets. The Jets had enough with him. But last year he had a good season. He's solid linebacker.
Good deal. What are your thoughts on Cashman?
Echoing what like Drew said, him and I were both big Cashman guys coming out of college. I mean, last year, and I think it shows more, the DeMeco Ryans effect on both of these guys we got from Houston, and we could see similar effect from Brian Flores taking these guys over. But Cashman last year as a coverage linebacker, 2nd best in the league, 4.5 yards per reception when he was the closest defender in the area. I mean, that was the 2nd best, like I said, in the league. 84 on PFF, take PFF for what it is, but the guy came into his own last year and played to the potential, like Drew said, to what kind of expected of him coming out of college before the injury bug got a hold of him. So, that it's the same thing between him and Grenard both. They've dealt with injuries a little bit in the past, but if they can stay healthy, those guys are legit players.
Well, folks, go ahead, Drew.
I was going to say, back when he was in the Big Ten, his last season at Minnesota, he was 8th in the Big Ten in total tackles, and he was 5th in tackles for loss. When he was a senior at Minnesota, he had 15 tackles for loss. That's always in the backfield, Ted. I'm telling you, Cashman, Van Ginkel, these are the best 2 signings to start free agency. I'm with Ryno. I've enjoyed this free agency today more than I have the last 12 years.
I have too. It's been even under Rick Spielman and the first couple years under Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, I think that's been the last couple years has been more due to salary cap constraints that he inherited from Rick Spielman. The Vikings didn't really have a lot of activity in the first couple of days. Kind of the first wave of free agency went by, and then the Vikings kind of went to the second tier guys. I like to call them the Dollar Tree General level of free agency, and the Vikings were kind of players today. And I saw a tweet from Rich Eisen just now. He said, "Who's had the worst day, the Vikings or the Giants?" And well, I'm not seeing it. I don't think the Vikings have had a bad day at all. I think they have set the Vikings' future on the right path now. And when Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah were hired, I think they were hired knowing that they were going to, at some point soon after they got hired, whether it was a year or 2 years, they were going to be hired to draft the quarterback of the future. And their legacy and their jobs were going to depend on who they hired. And if they made the right pick, they were going to be around a long time. And if they made the wrong pick, they were going to be gone probably after one contract. So they know what's riding on this. And they're going to make that pick, I would think, this draft. And so I would think they know what they're doing. If they don't, they're not going to be around very long. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You know who says who had a worse day, the Vikings or the Giants? It's a person who knows nothing about the Viking.
Yeah, I would agree.
This was a great day for the Vikings, I thought.
Yes,
I thought it was.
Yes.
I thought it was.
You know what? If we had Rick Spielman here, Ryno, we'd have gave Cousins that extension. We would have done it again.
Yep.
We would have done it again.
We absolutely would have.
And it would have. At least Kwesi's doing what he wants. They want to try. They're at least, like Ryno said, they're trying. They're making an effort to do something rather than just signing. Do you not think Spielman would have done that, Ted? Spielman?
I do not think he would. No, I think he would have tried to run it back with Kirk again.
Yes.
And just kind of add pieces around the edges like he did from 2018 up and since he signed Cousins. So I'm good with it.
I don't really understand. Maybe you guys can tell me why Kwesi catches so much shit. Is it just because most Viking fans don't like any GM because we've had such terrible ones? I don't know. They look like a Lewis scene. One pick, dude. I mean, come on.
It's something completely different than what we've had for the last 3 decades around here as far as general manager stuff goes, and people don't like change.
So, anyways, they have set the Vikings on a new course, and Mark Stein has asked, wondering if we're going to know what the Kwesi's QB plan is for the draft. I don't know. We'll see. I hope he doesn't tell us. And hey, we plan on drafting. We plan on trading up and drafting JJ McCarthy. I hope he doesn't tell us that. Well, get a guy. I don't know what they've got a plan.
We're gonna have Ryno back on here shortly in the future. We're gonna do 1,700 mock drafts with him, so we'll figure out who we're gonna take. Be ready, Ryno. Get all your picks in order because we're gonna.
All right, I'll be ready.
Every 15 minutes, starting in March 20th, every 15 minutes live.
All right,
Ruby, you out there?
Yep, ready to spin. Right.
For those of you that are familiar, what we do is we spin this electronic wheel for a prize. Our boy Troublemaker 2-3 has already won a prize for insulting the greatest college football game ever played when Miami lost to the greatest Ohio State team ever.
Troublemaker was his name? I got to write this down.
Troublemaker 2-3.
Trollmaker 2-3.
All right, everybody has 3 slices on the wheel since we didn't have a ton of commenters. So
All
here
right.
we go. Mark Larson.
Mark Larson, congratulations. Mark, Tommy, get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report with Drew and Ted at gmail.com. Send her your address. She'll send you a link to the Vikings Report prize vault, and we'll get
Ryno,
Yes,
you ever
sir.
won the wheel? Have you ever spun the wheel? Won the wheel?
I think I won once, like 2 or 3 years ago.
I'm bullshit PI. It was not PI, man. I got a picture. I'll send you the picture. It was legitimate pass interference, man. The ball was in the air. He was getting held. It was PI. Anyways, it doesn't matter. Look, congratulations on your prize. Get a hold of Ruby at Vikings Report, Drew and Ted at gmail.com. She'll send you a link to the prize vault. You can pick out a Vikings prize of your choice. Let her know what it is. We'll email it out or they'll email it out to you or email it. They'll mail it out to you within a few days. Before we let you go, Ryno, any final thoughts? And let us know about what you got coming up over in Vikings Uncensored World.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, great day as far as I'm concerned for the Vikings. I'm excited for the new direction, excited to see where we're going to go in the draft. You know, we finally get to see Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell put their stamp on this team and not just recycling the previous regime's leftovers. So I'm excited for that. Can't wait. And as far as Vikings Uncensored goes, when you get done watching here, hop on over to our channel. Ryno's Rant starts here in just a few minutes, where I'm going to do a live breakdown on a bunch of the goings on today, get the chat going, take questions and comments and back and forth and the same fun stuff we normally do. Brunswick's Best will return this week on Wednesday. And we'll have a live studio show again Friday night as well, 6 p.m. Central Time. So make sure you guys check all that out. And thank you guys all for having me on. I love coming on with you guys.
Loved having you, Ryno. Drewster, what do we got coming up on our show this weekend?
We got Jennifer Lawrence will be live with us.
Really?
And Ariana Grande. They'll both they'll be drunk and maybe making out. But that'll be, and then we got the guards and the centers coming up.
Oh, okay. In that order?
We got guards and centers coming on this week. We got a lot to talk about the interior of the offensive line. We're going to cover it all in the same show. It'll probably be another turbo show since we're covering 2 positions. But we'll have your center. Yeah, I got guys on Viking Watch for center and guards. I already did all my research. I made the boards up. We'll be having that released on either Saturday or Sunday. Even though there's no football, we get on Sunday now. But before we go, give me a quarterback that we're taking in the first round. Give me your picks right now. Subject to change. I know it's early March. You could change your mind in April, but right now, give me a quarterback the Vikings are going to either trade up for or draft the first round.
J.J. McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy.
J.J. McCarthy. I'm on board with J.J. McCarthy because of that attitude. He's got that attitude to rise up and win. So we're all 3 on the same. Yeah. Good job, guys.
All right. Folks, thanks for joining us.
I got a bolt, so.
All right. Thanks, Ryno. Folks, thanks for joining us. Check us out Saturday for our next show, and we will see you Saturday. And Skol Vikes.
Hey, Reggie. Chicks cannot hold their dope. That's what it is.
That's what it is.